Hello and welcome to Hockey Hypothetical, serious answers to silly questions. Each episode we will be taking preposterous scenarios that we've made up from the world of hockey and trying to produce genuine responses to the what-if questions. My name is Jonathan Fernley, I'm here with Stephen Dowson, and Douse, here's our first Hockey Hypothetical. Let's go back to the mid-90s.
Oh, please.
We're playing one of the classic NHL video games. Many say NHL 94 is the pinnacle. I was always an NHL 96 guy. You'll notice around the outside of the rink, we've got some advertising boards. But
Yes.
they're not real adverts, are they? They're not real
No, they
companies.
weren't back then, were they? No.
So let's say this isn't NHL 94 or 96. Let's say this is EIHL 94 or 96. Or as it was back then, British Premier League 94, 96. Basically, what fake companies are we advertising around the outside of our mid-90s British hockey rink?
That's so clever. Do you know I was actually talking about this with my wife the other day? Because we were talking about how video game advertising's become a lot more on the nose, hasn't it? And I remember playing games like FIFA and old video games back in the day where they had fake adverts. Because it made it feel more realistic, you know. Well, there's advertising in sport, and before somebody had the clever idea to, you know, put some adverts in the video games, they just came up with fake adverts, and it was always great because they'd have to be really imaginative and creative so that you could recognize them as adverts but not recognize the brand. And then somebody went, "Oh, why don't we just put real adverts in to make it even more realistic?" And I remember at the time thinking, "This is great," and now I go, "Oh, I miss the old ones. Those fake adverts from Actua Soccer and Actua Soccer and, you know, FIFA and the original, was it the original Championship Manager had fake adverts as well in when you did the digital stuff? Oh,
Definitely early Football Manager games.
Early Football Manager, yes.
But also, as it's gone on, Football Manager has now sort of become sponsored. Companies will pay to be in the advertising boards there because they're seen so often by so many people.
And then, because I'm just being reminded of like playing classic video games and having stuff like, you know, advertising Pula instead of Puma, you know, or Fred the Bakers, you know, or Bob's Tires for all of your tire needs, you know. Feeling tired? Phone Bob, you know, that kind of stuff where you could really just go nuts. So, it's 1994, it's the British Premier League. We were pretty heavily involved with Adidas back then, weren't we? Like a lot of the clubs had like Adidas logos and things like that.
I think lager sponsorship is pretty big at this stage as well.
Yeah, so you need like a fake lager. like a flagger of some sort. A fake lager. So you can't have Carlsberg and you can't have Carling. So what could you have? You could maybe have a mixture of the two. So you could have like, well, unfortunately Carlsberg and Carling both start with the same thing, so maybe you have Bergering. Or Ringberg. Ringberg Lager. That sounds like a good one. So there's your starter for 10. The main title sponsor, I think, is Ringberg Lager. Probably the best made-up lager in the world.
We probably want some kind of petrol company as well. Petrol used to get advertised back in the day, whether you wanted to go to Shell or Esso or Q8 or whatever was competing for your petrodollar in the early to mid-90s.
So you've got to have Shell, but you can't have Shell. So you've got to have some kind of other aquatic theme. So is it just sand petrol?
Sand petrol? I'm not sold on sand petrol.
No, you're not going to go and fill up at sand, are you?
No. That's not
because Shell is
that belongs in my car.
Yeah, because Shell is like... we could just call it Fossil.
Fossil
fuel.
Better. There we go.
Yeah, Fossil Fuels, you know, proudly sponsored by Fossil Fuels.
With a little dinosaur logo.
Yeah! Oh man, that'd be... And aces. Yes, let's get Fossil Fuels. Okay, so we need a fake clothing sponsor. So Adidas was a big one.
Well, United Colours of Benetton are all over Formula One at this stage. That's a sort of popular one.
Did anybody ever shop there?
No. You've also got your global hypercolour t-shirts, which is still just about hanging around at the mid-90s stage.
And Fruit of the Loom sweatshirts, which
certainly,
everybody's wearing. So maybe you could do United Colours of Loom as a kind of as a nod to both of those companies. or Fruit of the Benetton, although what a Benetton is, although what a loom, you know, what the Fruit of the Loom is I don't know. So there's your kind of like obscure kind of clothing range. The thing that they always used to do is they always used to have like just like local firms, like the made up local firms for the area. So like in the Steelers stadium, there'd be it'd be like Mike's steel making foundry or something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just the local girder factory.
Yeah. O'Connor's Girders. There you go. That would work. It's made of girders as well. They could use the Lion Brew logo.
Yeah, so you've got the other local ones. I just like that you mentioned sort of the generic ones, just like, this is Bob's Bakery and all those sort of ones. I think you're just going to get a lot of those as well that aren't really based on anything, but they're sort of recognisable as, well, I suppose back in the day advertising was a little bit more local.
Yeah, and it was so interesting to see how like they just tried to give it that sense of realism that you were there. Do you know what I mean? Because you go, oh yeah, that used to happen. There'd obviously be like actually my favourite ones are the very old FIFA crowd signs. When it was like very much, or maybe even early in the FIFA, like the old Japanese football games where they hadn't really seen a lot of football being played. So they had to kind of make up what A, it played like, and B, the kind of signs were. So you'd have, come on the Reds, let's go football. Like Pro Evolution Soccer, up until like about 5 or 6 years ago, still had that kind of stuff. So maybe we have like, come on the hockey, coming from the fans, and just a generic GB flag being floated around for no reason whatsoever.
But it wouldn't be a perfect Union Jack, though. The red diagonals being slightly the wrong place or missing altogether, or there's just some inaccuracy with it. Well, it's 8-bit, it's close enough.
Yeah, I like that. And then, so like, because then you have the cover of all the 90s pop music, so you'd get like a weird 8-bit version of Saturday Night by Wigfield, which would be amazing.
It would.
You know what I mean? I think it could. I think it would work.
I think you should bring it back.
I will. I'll bring it. Absolutely. I'm going to release it at the end of this podcast. So if you're sticking around, it's something to look forward to. So, what else do we need? What other sponsors are big in hockey at the time? Cigarettes were big back then, weren't they?
Yeah, just about. If we're particularly going early 90s rather than mid 90s.
Yeah, so we need the thing is, they've been so buried into the ground now. I really struggle to remember cigarette companies at all now.
I can only remember them from just watching old F1.
Yeah, like Camel.
John Player, Marlboro.
Yeah.
Every team had remember Mild 7 on the bench. Never saw any Mild 7 for sale anywhere. But they were on the side of Michael Schumacher's car, so...
What is a Mild 7? How do I get one? So, instead of Camel, you've got, like, Donkey cigarettes. Donkey cigars.
Well, Benson and Hedges should be a fairly easy one to take up, because you just need a B and H.
Yeah. Bobbies and Henrys.
There we go.
Brits and Harrys. Ben and Horsies. Yeah, okay, maybe not so as easy as I thought. So yeah, so you got the Ben and Horsies Cup, And what was the title sponsor? Because it was lager, wasn't it? For the most part, it was Heineken at some point as well.
Yeah, Heineken sponsored back in those days. Seconda was the watchmaker that did the Super League that followed.
Yeah, the thing is, sometimes you have to get the designers would get a bit kind of lazy halfway through, so you'd have something called like timeless watches. Because they're both timeless and they don't keep the time very well, and then people go, haha, very clever, You could go even one step further because Virgin did a lot of advertising back then, like proper HMV, Virgin, stuff like that.
Yeah,
so like a fake.
You can even go back to something like Andy's Records because that's an easy one to take up because you just need, Gary's tape store or something.
Yeah. Gary's tape store.
You're also going to need some kind of takeoff of camera film, whether it's Fuji or Agfa or Kodak, and also VHS tapes, whichever brand of VHS tape you're purchasing.
You have filmy VHS, I think. So it's like Fuji but filmy. filmy VHSs, and they've got like a really prominent yellow dashboard around the sides. Just really horrible with a very badly pixelated camera on it. So people go, "Oh, that's horrible." Makes them laugh every time you go past. Genius. The 90s were great for that kind of stuff, though, because it really did challenge people to kind of think about how they could be creative within that medium. Because, imagine if you're making fake advertisers today, you'd have to have a fake betting company.
Yeah.
But most betting companies kind of sound fake anyway. Like, Paddy Power does sound just made up.
So made up. It really is. It's actually a genuine... It is Patrick Power. That is his name.
Yeah. And you're like, Williams, and that wouldn't really work either.
Well, I'm just trying to think back to my youth and what I saw advertised on TV. I mean, obviously there's no... a lot of the stuff today just wasn't around 20 years ago or more ago. But I certainly remember there being a lot of competition, particularly as I was watching kids' TV, for which breakfast cereal I was eating.
Oh, yeah?
So there's always a Frosties ad or a Cocoa Pops ad or whatever. They just want the kids to have their particular brand of cereal. Instead
of Tony the Tiger, you got Lenny the Lion.
Yeah, we're going to need some kind of morning flake.
Or Peter the Panther. Although he would only work in certain venues, I suppose.
Yeah, but as long as it's clearly available as a breakfast cereal with some kind of cartoon character on it, I feel that fits the era well.
Yeah, and I think so. We need some kind of almost like a fake cartoon mascot as well. And really, really bad. Because, again, back in the 90s, a lot of the video game developers wouldn't have even seen the sport. So we'd have, Pucky the Puck, who, teaches kids about roadwork safety and building safety in primary schools that you colour in and completely ignore.
Are we going to be able to have the real rosters, or are we going to have to make up the player names as well? A bit like the NHL recent games have done, just sticking on the most stereotypical British names they can think of. Well, hopefully that now we're in the top tier of the World Championships, we'll actually get the genuine GB team on the roster.
Be nice, wouldn't it?
For at least the 2020 release, once the World Championships has been played.
Yeah.
And they sort of know what the team is.
Yeah. If I remember correctly, the Team GB have players such as Blair and T. T's a good one. I think there was Knight is another one, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think there's also a sort of a long name, like a Waddington or a Wrigglesworth.
Yes, Wrigglesworth, yeah. Come on, Wrigglesworth.
Yeah, just a sort of posh old gent's sort of surname with that. I mean, there's probably going to be a couple of Smiths and a Jones in there as well somewhere.
But yeah, I think if we were making a video game in the 90s, you would have to have kind of fake, really, really stupidly British names. Do you see what I mean? Like Harry Earl and David Waddington, Jimmy Carter. No, he's an American president. Jimmy Carr. No, he's a comedian. No Jimmys. Can't go anywhere near Jimmys.
You can get away with Jimmy Carr in 1994, but not Jimmy Carter.
No, Jimmy Carter. He's America's greatest mistake. Or maybe you just do what they did, because I remember playing Sensible Soccer, and they'd have Ilin Sherara, and you're like, oh, that's Alan Shearer, or Tony Plitt, which is I believe is the Dutch version of Tony Platt.
So you're suggesting we have Merck Rochardson on the blue line next to Bin O'Connor.
Bin O'Connor. Oh man, who would have the best one of that? Bobby Dowdy. Just so it's him. Some of them would be really obscure, Or Jimmy Bell would be Jackson Whistle. Yeah. It's all very clever, All right, Jonathan, your go. We've had some great stories in the Elite League over the last 8 or 9 years since the league's really found its feet again. Which one of those great stories would make the best Hollywood film?
Hollywood film?
Yeah, it's going to go mainstream.
Okay.